Hello and welcome back. This is another fourth and fifth grade division video where we're going to focus on how to divide by two-digit numbers. So up to now, we've been dividing by one-digit numbers, 0 or 1 through 9, but now we're going to focus on two-digit numbers. Okay, here is the first example we're going to do together. We're going to take the number 44 and we are going to divide it by 10. So I'm going to go ahead and use the standard algorithm for this as it seems to work best. We can always do the table or row method as well, but when we're dividing by bigger digit numbers, we tend to have bigger numbers, and that's a lot of objects to be using for that method. So I'm going to be using divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down, or the standard algorithm. That means I'm going to start with 44 and put that inside the division bracket and put 10 on the outside. So what makes this a little more challenging is a lot of times we don't know our double digit number multiplication facts. In this case, we do. Most of us know our 10 facts or can skip count by 10. So this will be a little bit easier. But as we get further into the video and we're dividing by different two-digit numbers, what you'll see is it's a little bit tougher because we maybe don't have our 18 facts memorized. Okay, so we need to see how many times 10 goes into 4, which it does not. So I'm going to put a 0 here and cross that off. Next would be my multiplication step. So I would multiply 0 times 10 and get 0. And then I'm going to cross that off. Then I'm going to go ahead and subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. And then I'm going to bring down my next number and place it here. So I just ran through all 4 of my steps. Now, if you want to see this more in depth, I suggest you go back and look at a previous video I made on how to divide by single digit numbers, and we go more thoroughly into these steps. Now I'm going to go ahead and repeat these steps. I need to know how many times 10 fits into 44. Well, if I'm counting my tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, it would probably go 4 times. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there and cross that off. Then I would multiply 4 times 10, and that equals 40. So I'm going to go ahead and list that right there. That's the multiplication step. Then I'm going to subtract those two numbers. I would get 4 left over. So that's subtraction. Now there are no more numbers to bring down. So that means my answer here is that 10 goes into 44 4 times with a remainder of 4, or 4 left over. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to take 18 and divide it by 18. So we can run through all 4 steps on these: divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down for practice. Or if you happen to know the rule of division that says that any number divided by the same number is equal to 1, you already know the answer to this. But let's run through the division steps anyway. So I'm going to take the first number, which is 18, put it in the division bracket, and the second number, also 18, goes on the outside. So I need to see how many times 18 fits into 1, and it does not. So I'm going to cross that off and put a 0. 0 times 18 will give me, 0. I almost wrote 18. No, 0 times 18 gives me 0. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there and subtract it to get 1. And then I'm going to bring down the 8 and put it right there. Now I have to repeat my steps. I need to know how many times 18 fits into 18, and that looks like it would be exactly once. So that's the division step. 1 times 18 equals 18. So that's multiplication. Then I'm going to subtract those, and I get 0 left over, and there are no more numbers to bring down. So that means that our first thought that 18 divided by 18 was 1 was correct. Okay, here is our next one. We're going to take the number 200 and divide it by 11. So I'm going to put that first number, which is 200, inside the division bracket and the 11 on the outside. I'm going to write my steps: divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. So I want to know how many times 11 fits into 2, and that would be 0 times. So that was my first division step. 0 times 11 is 0. So there's my multiplication curve. When I subtract those, I get 2 left over. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring down this 0 and place it here next to the 2, which makes it 20. Okay, time to repeat the steps. I need to know how many times 11 fits into 20, and it only fits about once, I would say. So that's the division step. 1 times 11 equals 11. So there's my multiplication curve. I'm going to cross that off. My next step is to subtract. So 20 minus 11 would be 9. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that off. Then I have to bring down the 0, making the 9 90. Okay, so now it's time for the next step. I need to figure out how many times 11 fits into 90. So I want to say 9 times, but 9 times 11 is actually 99, which would be too much. So I'm going to go with 8 times, and that's the division step. Then I'm going to multiply 8 times 11 equals 88. So that is the multiplication step. When I subtract those, I get 2 left over, and then there are no more numbers to bring down. So my final answer is the 18 I have on the top with a remainder of 2 that I had left over when I had no more numbers to bring down. Okay, here is our next one. We're going to take the number 68 and divide it by 17, again with the standard algorithm. So divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. I'm going to take 68 and divide it by 17. Now, this is the first one that gets a little trickier because the 10s we knew and the 11s we knew, but the 17s, not really so much. So I'll show you how we can handle that. 17 does not fit into 6. So I'm going to put a 0 there and cross that off. Then I'm going to multiply 0 times 17 for my multiplication curve, which is 0. So I'm going to cross that off. Now I'm going to subtract those and get 6 left over. Cross that off. And then bring down the 8 and cross that off. So I've run through my steps the first time. Now here comes the little bit trickier part. I need to figure out how many times 17 fits into 68. I don't happen to know that off the top of my head. So here's what I could do. I could come over here and try some multiplication to see how close I can get to 68 without going over. Now, if I want to kind of make an educated guess as to like how close I could get, I could round 17 up to 20 and then count by 20s until I get close to 68. So 20, 40, 60, 80. 80 might be too much. So I'm thinking maybe 3 times. And that'll give us a good place to start. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply 17 times 3 and see what I end up getting. 7 times 3 is 21. And then 1 times 3 is 3 plus 2 is 5. So 51. Okay, that's not over 68, but maybe I might be able to get a little bit closer. So I'm going to try 17 times 4 just to see what that is. So 7 times 4 is 28. I'll put a 2 up here. 1 times 4 is 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay, so that's exactly 68. So that means the 4 is what should go up here, and that is my division step. So even though it was a division step, we kind of solved it with multiplication, which also makes the next step of multiplication a little bit easier because we've already figured it out. 4 times 17 equals 68 exactly. So there's the multiplication step. I'm going to subtract those two numbers and get 0. And there are no more numbers to bring down. So that means I am finished. And my answer here is 4 with no remainder. Okay, here is our last one for today's video. We're going to take 922 and divide it by 13. So I'm going to go ahead and write my steps. Divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. I'm going to put the 922 inside the division bracket and put 13 on the outside. Again, this is a little bit trickier because we don't really know our 13s off the top of our head, but we can also use multiplication to help us figure it out. 13 does not fit into 9, so that's going to get a 0. 0 times 13 is 0. Subtract those two numbers and I get 9 left over. And then I bring down the 2. So now I need to figure out how many times 13 fits into 92. So if I'm rounding this number 13, I'm rounding it down to 10. And I believe that 10 would fit into 92 about 9 times. So I'm going to try 13 times 9 just to see how close I get to 92 or if I go over 92. 3 times 9 is 27. So I'll go ahead and split that up. 1 times 9 is 9 plus 2 is 11. So you can see I got a little bit too much when I did 9. 117 is past 92. So I'm going to go down here and try 13 times 8 instead, see if I can get a smaller number. 3 times 8 is 24. And then 1 times 8 plus 2 would be 10. So still a little too much. So I'm going to go down to 7. So what I'm going to do is erase this one. And I'm going to come bring it down to 7. 3 times 7 is 21. And then 1 times 7 plus 2 is 91. So this is as close as I'm going to get, 7. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 7 up here. And then I'm going to put the 91 here. So that's the division step and the multiplication step, kind of all in the same stroke. So let me go ahead and subtract that, and I would get 1 left over. Then I'm going to bring down this 2 and place it here. Okay, so that ends up being 12. Now I need to figure out how many times 13 fits into 12. And the answer is it doesn't, because 12 is actually smaller than 13. So I'm going to put another 0 there. I'm going to do 0 times 13, which equals 0. Cross that off. Subtract those numbers, and I get 12. So here is my final answer, because there's no more numbers to bring down. My final answer is the 70 that I have on top with a remainder of 12. So one thing you'll notice when you're doing these dividing by 2-digit numbers is your remainder also gets bigger, because it needs to have more things to be able to fit in the group to make another group of it. As long as your remainder is smaller than the number you're dividing by, then you're on the right track. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope to see you in another video soon.